When the Apostle John sat down to write his gospel, he wasn't interested in simply adding one more account of Jesus' life to the three that were already in existence. John wrote his book with a very specific purpose in mind. Jesus did many other miraculous signs in the presence of his disciples which are not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. John 20, 30, and 31. The most significant fact in history can be summed up in 4 words: Jesus Christ is God. The great declaration of the Bible is that God in human flesh was born in Bethlehem. It was God in the person of Jesus Christ. It was God in human flesh that was born. It was God in the person of Jesus Christ who astonished the people of his day with his miracles and amazed them with his teaching. It was God who lived a perfect life and then allowed himself to be put to death on a Roman cross for humanity's sins. It was God who broke the bonds of death 3 days after he died and came out of the grave alive. The deity of Jesus, the fact that he was God in human form, is the bottom line of the Christian faith. John's book is not a biography, it's a theological argument. John wants to convince us that Jesus of Nazareth is God's Son. Then he wants to show us how that fact will change our lives in some amazing ways. It is by believing in Jesus as the Son of God that we find life, real life, eternal life, and a whole new kind of life. Every event that John records is designed to show us that Jesus is God. He pulls from the life of Jesus specific incidents that demonstrate his majesty and his deity. Of particular interest to John are the sign miracles of Jesus. In the first 12 chapters alone of his book, he records 7 miracles. And these miracles were not performed simply to relieve human suffering or to meet a need. They were signs. They pointed to the truth of Jesus' claim to be the Son of God. John was the last of the gospel writers, and the best evidence that we have points to a date around AD 90 for the composition of his gospel. The other gospels had already been in circulation for some time, and John wrote to add his unique perspective and to fill in some of the details that were not recorded by the other writers. He assumes that his readers are familiar with the other gospels. John doesn't mention, for example, the anguish of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. The other writers had already adequately described that incident. John does, however, give us the details of Jesus' conversation with his disciples on the night before his crucifixion. The other writers mention it only briefly and in passing. John never mentions himself by name in the gospel. He refers to himself simply as the disciple whom Jesus loved. We have in this gospel the memories of an intimate friend about his friend Jesus. Jesus had transformed John's life, and I hope that you are prepared to have that happen to you, because we're about to begin a fascinating study focused on the greatest person who ever lived, Jesus Christ. And if you'll respond to what John writes in faith and obedience, you, like John, will experience a whole new kind of life.